Welcome to the Tuesday Nights Triumph Over Targeting podcast. I'm your moderator, LF. And tonight we have another special guest. His name is Dr. Marko. I'll be introducing you to him here in just a minute. If you are new to the call, please stay on and we will get you some additional support, some TalkShoe podcast numbers, and some helpful links and websites. This is a solutions and educational-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions, comments, questions, or especially if you are in need of additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2016@gmail.com. So if you're new to the call and you're not quite sure how the features work, we're going to do an interview, and after the interview is over, we'll get to the questions and answers part of it. So if you're interested in asking a question, you will star 8 on your phone, and that will indicate to me that you'd like to speak. And if for any reason you want to mute yourself back up, if you have background noise or whatever the case may be, just hit star 6 on your phone, and that will mute you, and then star 6 to unmute yourself again. So the most important thing is just to remember to star 8. And then when I unmute you, you'll hear a prompt, like you are being unmuted, and then you'll know that you're unmuted. So just wait till you hear the prompt, because some people get a little confused by that. So let me get to the bio here. A little bit about Dr. Marko. He spent 30-plus years as an organizational development psychologist in large corporations and governments internationally, which means that as a psychologist, he worked with organizations and people within those organizations to help achieve objectives and modify culture. He has a PhD in psychology with a major in consciousness studies and has done research in that field. In 2011, he co-authored and edited an academic book on that subject entitled Post-Conventional Personality. Subsequently, Paul wrote a short book for public consumption entitled Belief Magic, designed as a tool to awaken people to the trap in which those that manipulate their beliefs have placed them. Academically, Paul has taught at various times on all levels of education, from kindergarten to the postgraduate level. Currently, Paul and his wife Mindy do several podcasts per month called The World Beyond Belief, which presents information and interviews relevant to the awakening of humankind. They also make videos that explain what is really happening in the world behind the MSM facade. Paul and Mindy host and produce a weekly panel discussion entitled the Techno-Crime Fighters Forum to raise awareness of the plight of those innocent individuals being targeted by the deep state, which orchestrates gang-stalking events and directed energy weapons to transform mankind. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. So again, welcome to the call. I really appreciate that you came.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Anything that'll get the word out, anything that'll make this thing more public. And I actually had some good news today. We've been doing these Techno-Crime Fighter podcasts for, we've done the 10th one last week. So it's the 11th week we're doing these things, and they're amazing. I don't know whether you've seen them. I know Midge has. She's been on one. These targeted individuals do heavy-duty research all week, and they present research at the Techno-Crime Fighters Forum every week. So we get loads of new information, you get real disclosures, and you really find out what's going on in the world behind the mainstream media puppet show that really has little to do with reality. Now, I was thinking that I was excited because somebody sent me today, somebody probably in Europe, because part of it's in German and Swedish, a compilation of one of our Techno-Crime Forum, and it's entitled FBI to Dr. Millicent Black, quote, "We know who chips are on, ... So someone is doing exactly what I wanted them to do right from the beginning of this, initiating this regular podcast, and that's pull things out of this podcast that are sometimes they're bombshell, sometimes they're really breaking news. We have one person on the panel. She's an NSA whistleblower, and she comes up with stuff just about every week. So I was encouraged that it's getting more legs than just, our little podcast, that it's actually getting around the world and people are picking up the information and publishing it, because that, I think, is the first step in undoing this whole mess.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. The more information we can get out there, incredibly, because it's hard. This is a program that is almost seems scientific, and science fiction. So it can be very difficult to convince people, and people get distressed. And so when we communicate the stories, sometimes people will just mark it off, or just will think it's some kind of psychological disorder. So it is a little difficult to try to convince people. And I understand that you've had a lot of our quote-unquote TI celebrities on your show. Like I believe you've had Karen Stewart, and I think that's who you were referring to. You've had Catherine Horton and Melissa Slack and all these great people. So we're very grateful in the community that you bring people like that on and are trying to help expose this.
Well, actually, Catherine Horton created the panel. It includes Dr. Milton Black, Karen Milton Stewart, and Romola D. And she's actually a very well-known writer. So the idea was, for me originally, was that if you get 4 or 5 targeted individuals who really just cannot be gaslighted. I mean, they're so incredibly credible, knowledgeable, intelligent to sit there and verify what's happening to one another. How could anyone doubt that it's happening? And I think it's really catching on. We get more and more comments. We get more people in the chat every week. By the way, it's on at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday morning, and it comes through our YouTube channel, which is Pinecone Utopia YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to the channel, of course, you'll be alerted before it comes on. And you can come on, be in the chat room. We have I think we have most TIs in the chat room. And you can comment directly to the Techno Crime Fighter team. They're wonderful to work with. We have a lot of fun. Oddly enough, we have a lot of fun on these broadcasts because we find incredible things out. And sometimes it's so ridiculous, we just have to laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the first thing we're doing is to try to get about it. It's so important. Everybody knows what's going on because
do you know your phone's
Go ahead.
Do you know your phone's breaking up?
No.
Yeah.
Hey, is it so bad? Should I recall in, or what do you think?
Yeah, try calling back in. It might help. Maybe it won't. We have a lot of course, disruptions on these calls, trying to make it difficult to get valuable information out, as you know. So, if you want to call back in, maybe that'll make it a little better.
Okay, I'll hang up and go through the same procedure I did to get in the beginning.
Okay, sounds
good.
Okay.
Ella, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Maybe you want to restart the recording so that it makes a nice, clean recording. I think he's going to start over his intro.
You think so?
Well, I'm always thinking about just having a professional sounding
well, what
upload.
I'll do is maybe just have him. I could have him edit it. I'll have him edit it just as soon as he calls in. Then what I'll do is my intro again, but I'll keep it really nice and short.
Okay.
Plus, my dog was barking and everything else was going on. Okay.
Yeah, I can cut it up for you.
Is that better?
Yeah, let's see.
Better?
Let me see if it's better. Let's see. What's the name of your website and your YouTube channel again?
The YouTube channel is Pinecone Utopia YouTube channel, and the blog is pineconeutopia.wordpress.com.
Okay, well, you sound great. So you sound great.
Okay.
What I'm going to kind of start it over. We don't have to go into all of it again, although someone has suggested maybe we can kind of just, fine-tune it a little bit. I guess I'll start over. I'm sorry to have to ask you to do that. Would that be okay?
That's fine.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so I'm just going to give it 10 minutes pause, and we'll start over.
Okay.
Welcome to the Tuesday Nights Trump Over Target podcast. I'm your moderator, Ella, and tonight we have yet another special guest, Dr. Paul Marko. If you are new to the call, please stay on, and we will get you some support, additional TalkShoe podcast numbers, and hopefully some helpful links and websites. This is a solutions and educational-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions, comments, or questions, or if you're in need of additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2006@gmail.com. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Marko. He spent 30-plus years as an organizational development psychologist in large corporations and governments internationally, which means that as a psychologist, he worked with organizations and people within those organizations to help achieve objectives and modify culture. He has a PhD in psychology with a major in consciousness studies and has done research in that field. In 2011, he co-authored and edited an academic book on that subject entitled The Post-Conventional Personality. Subsequently, Paul wrote a short book for public consumption entitled Belief Magic, designed as a tool to awaken people to the trap in which those that manipulate their beliefs have placed on them. Academically, Paul has taught at various times on all levels of education from kindergarten to the postgraduate level. Currently, Paul and his wife Mindy do several podcasts per month called The World Beyond Belief, which presents information and interviews relevant to the awakening of humankind. They also make videos that explain what is really happening in the world behind the MSM facade. Paul and Mindy host and produce a weekly panel discussion entitled the Techno-Crime Fighters Forum to raise awareness of the plight of those innocent individuals being targeted by the deep state, which orchestrates gang-stalking events and directs energy weapons to transform mankind. So thank you, Paul. This is kind of our take two. So we really appreciate you coming to the call. And from what I understand, I know that you have interviewed quite a few of our TIs in the community. Maybe we should start by giving your contact information, your YouTube channel, and talk about the panel that you have.
All right. My YouTube channel is Pinecone Utopia YouTube channel. And we have a lot of things on there. I think last time I saw we had 233 different videos. Most recently, we're working with targeted individuals, in addition to other things. Our blog is pineconeutopia.wordpress.com, and there's a contact information there. Also, I always read all the comments that come in, so you can communicate with me by posting a comment on any of the Techno Crime Fighter Force or other broadcasts that we do. So that's how you can get in touch with us.
And maybe I should ask you, maybe we can go back to the beginning a little bit. How did you first learn about targeting and targeted individuals?
That's a good question. I was doing normal podcasts, and I was very interested in the subject of pedophilia and how people were tortured, how people lose their kids, child trafficking, and the whole that whole cadre. Because I couldn't think of anything being more horrible than a child. I mean, a child you're frightened to begin with, and then to be abducted and used in ritual. I mean, it's just a horrible, horrible thing. So. And also, I think it's also very important to the people that run the planet. I think it's a source of power. Anyway, years ago, long before Pedogate or Pizzagate, we were involved in that. And we're doing podcasts on that and other subjects. And then we got an interview with a person named Seven, Charles Seven, or 7 Charlie 7. And she's a famous targeted individual who, do you know the story? Is that a common?
No, I don't. I'm relatively new to the community, not to targeting, but to the community. So no, but I have heard of her, and it might have been from you.
Actually, I'm going to interview her again tomorrow to have people catch up. So that'll be on our YouTube channel. Anyway, she is an incredible woman, probably one of the most incredible women I've ever talked to. And I host a panel of incredible women every week. But Seven invented, she's a creative genius, and she invented a cadre of programs that would incorporate health with entertainment. One of the shows that she created was Dancing with the Stars, among maybe 10 or 20 other. And she created a whole network full of these shows that would incorporate health and entertainment. Anyway, she took it to a lawyer to have them start the process of selling this thing, and they stole it from her. Lock, stock, and barrel. And then they turned around and sold it all over the world to major broadcasting companies in every country. So these programs started making billions of dollars around the world. Well, she took them to court to get some of her money for, what she had lost. And she's so intelligent and skilled verbally that she was able to win in court in the UK. But, unfortunately, there was no mechanism to enforce the court's judgment. So she's still out the money. Subsequently, the judge was murdered for not playing ball with the establishment, I suppose. Anyway, so she became a targeted individual. And that was the first time I had ever heard of it. We'd interview her, and she'd talk about the van in front of her house. I'm not sure at that point in her targeting that she was subject to energy weapons, but certainly physical harassment. And actually, last week I talked to her, and she recorded on a broadcast that she made someone left a bomb near her apartment. So she's still very much a target. Well, I thought it was an astounding story, and one thing led to another. About a year later, Dr. Eric Carlstrom started doing podcasts with us, and he, of course, is a targeted individual himself, and so he would read books about targeting and what he knew about targeting and combined that with his personal experience, and it became a series of really fascinating podcasts. They're all available on Pinecone Utopia, and some of them have really high numbers of views because, well, he's a great talker, and he's interesting, and he's a great lecturer, and he's really knowledgeable. I mean, he's the kind of guy, when he reads a book, he'll remember who wrote it and maybe the chapter that this information came out of, and certainly all the information, and can relate it to other things. And so we were doing that, and we did that for, maybe 8 or 9 months. And then we became aware of Dr. Catherine Horton. Now, this person, totally amazing person, totally functioning left and right brain, very bright, very quick, targeted individual. She became targeted because I think she was watching too closely the goings-on at a trial in the UK, and so she became targeted. And actually, her what can I say, descent into the program was rather fast. Although she's gang-stalked, she was almost hit immediately with energy weapons to destroy her brain and, her body parts. She had been interviewed by Richie Allen, but I was fortunate enough to get to interview her too, and we shared so much in common and had so many interests in common that she subsequently interviewed me. And I think it could be her idea, it could be Eric's idea, or it could have been just Mindy's idea with me to get a bunch of them together, a bunch of targets together that are highly credible, credentialed people, and then have them talk. I mean, how can you argue with, the likes of Dr. Eric Karlstrom, Dr. Catherine Horton, and the others that we have. So I interviewed Romola D., which was an incredible interview. It's a tear-jerking interview. I had trouble not crying during that interview, but it really got a lot of interest. And then Catherine assembled her team, which is Karen Milton Stewart, Dr. Millicent Black, who's another amazing, they're all amazing. And then, of course, Catherine Horton and Romola D., who's a fantastic, she's an award-winning writer. So we have these people every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Pinecone Utopia channel. If you're a member or if you're a subscriber, I think YouTube lets you know that we're doing it so that you can be in the chat room and talk directly with these amazing people.
Is that through YouTube or is there...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just curious how it works. Is it just streaming live on YouTube? Is that how it works, or do we go to your website?
Just it's streaming live on YouTube.
Okay.
You can actually type in Techno Crime Fighters Forum, and it'll probably get you to our channel, or you can go to Pinecone Utopia YouTube channel, and we'll be on there 11 o'clock in the morning. We start, and people from all over the world are logged in and in the chat. They spend all week investigating, putting together information on this topic. So every week there's bombshell information. There's amazing information on who's doing this gang stalking, who's doing the directed energy weapons, how this thing rolls up in terms of the different companies and governments that are reporting up through the big triangle organization. So there's always new information, and I've been trying to get other alternative media outlets to listen to this, because we break news, we break blockbuster news every week. It always astounds me. And rather than covering, Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia or what's going on in Syria, not that it's not important, but what's happening to you and me and everybody on the planet is they're testing energy weapons to control us. So what you really need to know is what the Techno Crime Fighter Forum is addressing. The weapons, who's doing it, why they're doing it. To me, that's the real news. Everything else is kind of the puppet show that's going on in the background to keep mainstream media and most alternative media occupied so that they don't find out about Ella or Midge or the other people that are under direct assault by asymmetrical warfare every day of their lives, 24 hours a day. There's not much difference between those people and the people that are and were housed in Guantanamo Bay. They're tortured 24/7. It's just touchless torture is the difference. So to me, it's the most important subject going on right now, and it's a subject that I don't mind doing numerous podcasts, being active and getting people involved in this, and doing wonderful shows like yours right now, Ella.
Thank you. We really appreciate people who support our cause, especially non-TIs. We think, and there are other people who also cover our topics, but, it's few and far between, and it shouldn't be like that. If they knew that this was real and this was going on, I think this would be a pretty hot topic. Mainstream news would be covering it, obviously. So what made you believe that this was for real? Because
Eric Karlstrom and I, we just have some kind of rapport together. And it started off with podcasts. We weren't doing podcasts on the TI subject. I'm trying to think of what. Oh, we did a podcast on Tavistock, which is actually TI. If you go up the chain, we did podcasts on. I think we did one on Jade Helm. We did a lot of those topics that he was interested in researching, and I was interested in researching and interviewing him on. So we got this really good rapport, and then the rapport led into this. I want to talk about gang stalking because it's happening to me. And he would tell me what happened to him. And, of course, I believed it. I mean, he's a good friend of mine, and we've done some what I think is pretty amazing work together, mostly because of his incredible research. But, yes, so I believed him, and then he would go through incredible books that he would read on the subject. There are some incredible books. I don't have any right in front of me, but there's some books on the patents that are used, and there's a lot of information out there, and he would bring that information to light for people who watch the podcast. So naturally, I was interested in the subject, and then of course, Catherine Horton. She herself is so compelling. She is so bright, so together. She's a physicist. She's a particle physicist from CERN. I mean, for heaven's sakes, and she can do organizational analysis and look at things like that as well as I can. And I've been 30 years in that field. So she's a particularly amazing person, and they're really hitting her hard. I mean, she's having her body destroyed during each podcast. It's really horrible. So, of course, she was convincing, and then Romola D, amazing woman.
She really is. Not only she's a scintillating writer, she's just such a soft, beautiful. She's just a lovely woman. I really do think so.
She really is, and she's just recently put together the complete story, if you can have a complete story, of Dr. Millicent Black. Now, Dr. Black is a woman who's been targeted for 27 years. Her and her community is targeted. But Millicent has put together the whole documented list of events of what happened to Millicent from the time she got put into the program to now. And she is, interestingly enough, she's targeted by the Air Force. That's her targeting agency. And, of course, one particular individual that's her, what can we call, her demon, or her tormentor, a person trained in this satanic torture protocol that they use. So Dr. or Romola has that on her website now, and I don't have the website right in front of me. But if you go to, do you know it?
Yeah, everydayconcerned.net is her. And the name of the paper or the online blog is Everyday Concerned Citizen. Yes.
Right. And if you put this on YouTube, you might want to have a link to that at the bottom of the,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, because that's. Yeah, go ahead.
She has a fantastic blog for targeted individuals.
She does.
Yeah.
And then there's Dr. Horton's blog, stop007.org.
Yep. She's got a great one, and she has a letter writing campaign, and people can join just by logging onto the website, and there's instructions. So, yeah, so you have all these great people, and you guys have a panel now every week.
Yes, and sometimes they invite guests in, and Mitch came in and gave some information, and there were other TIs that come in and give information, and sometimes talk about what their personal story is, and you always get new information from them. So it's been great. We've been having a lot of luck getting interest in the topic. As I said before, we just had someone, probably in Europe, because they've combined languages in this YouTube video they made. The name of this video is "The FBI to Dr. Millicent Black, quote, we know whose chips are on ... And this is an interesting video that combines takes from the Techno Crime Fighter forum in addition to other pieces of information. This is what I think, this is what's really going to give it legs. When people start pulling this blockbuster information out and, taking a 10-minute soundbite from this and then combining with collaborating information or information that will show even the bigger picture. And it also gives our TIs credibility. So I just saw that today, and I'm so excited that it's finally happening, that these forums are getting watched, and people are pulling out the incredible bombshell information that comes out of these podcasts.
And even like with Karen Stewart, and maybe we can go into this a little bit further, with Lockheed Martin and how they've established these programs. I don't know if it's program is the right word, but these networks, or I don't know the exact word. Do you want to go into that a little bit? Because that's very interesting to our community, and not everyone has heard that yet.
Yeah, it's on Techno Crime Fighter Forum. I should try to find it here. But what Karen, is targeted, and she's been targeted ever since she retired from the NSA. And she gets hit with energy weapons. I mean, sometimes she has to move around during the podcast. Sometimes she has to be outside. But she hired a private investigator to find out about how these things are put together, how these targeting programs are put together. And one of the ways, of course, they're done by government, they're done by the deep state, they're done by the military, and all those organizations. They're done all around the world. Okay, it was on Techno Crime Fighter 7 she broke this. And then that following week, Mindy pulled out a little section, and we entitled it Lockheed Martin. The title of the video is Ex-NASA Employee Whistleblower Exposes Lockheed Martin. And she just told us what this private investigator found. And the documentation is available also on this. So it's a documented, it's a printed thing that you can get also through Karen. What it said was Lockheed Martin, that company, it's a military contractor to everybody. I used to work in organizations that worked tangentially to Lockheed Martin. But this company, in addition to being a weapon manufacturer and probably the darkest of the dark, it floats franchises. I think we've called them franchises. that are in 47 of the states throughout the United States, and I believe in other countries also. And these franchises are gang stalking, energy weapon using franchises. In other words, you can get paid through this Lockheed Martin franchise, probably by government, probably by our tax dollars, to gang stalk people, to hit them with energy weapons in 47 of the 50 states. So that was pretty blockbuster. I thought that, I don't know whether you know Karen Stewart, but if
yes,
you talk
I do
to
know.
Karen Stewart, if you talk to her for more than 10 minutes, her credibility is never questioned. She doesn't say anything that she isn't certain of. I mean, she was selected by the NSA. I mean, she was an agent of that outfit, and you can take her words to the bank. And any psychologist that would get her in any kind of a diagnostic type situation to find out if she's got both of her oars in the water and she's not crazy, could come to that conclusion very quickly, because she really is a solid person. And so she broke that on Techno Crime Fighter Forum 7. I think the following one, we were actually, Karen Horton had taken the lead, and we were looking into, it might have been Techno Crime Fighter 9, I'm not really sure. It's where we started trying to figure out, since these different franchises or these different outfits, the Air Force, the Navy, the CIA, they all have real similar programs. They run, in an organized way. It starts off with, I think they observe you, then they try to disrupt you. You would know more about this than I do. Try to disrupt you financially and friends-wise. Start the gaslighting. And then they start to actually gang stalk you one-on-one and park cars near your house. So many descriptions of this stage. And then they'll start doing the directed energy weapons. They'll start implanting chips and starting to make you, a regular tortured individual. And so what we did, we saw that there were a lot of similarities between the way these things operate, the energy weapons they use, how they do them. And we thought that if we could find, if there were differences, let's say there were differences between the way they do this in Germany and Switzerland, and the way they do this in Maryland, and the way they do this in Boston, are they the same or are they different? Well, they're all very much the same. And they all have to report back to some big triangular organization that's going to have paper trails and payroll responsibilities. And so we kept going back, and so if they report, who could they report to? Well, they could report to they're reporting to this government agency or this military agency. And then, well, who do those military agencies report to? And we kind of ratcheted back. Actually, Catherine Horton explains it much better than me, because she read I think it's a mathematical analysis of how this thing had to roll up. Anyway, we got up to them ultimately reporting to the Committee of 300, and then, of course, who heads up the Committee of 300 are individuals who call themselves the Olympians. And these Olympians, can you imagine grown-up people call themselves the Olympians? And these Olympians are the ones that control the Committee of 300 that, cascade into what we're doing. An example of these Olympians would be Henry Kissinger, George H.W. Bush, probably George Soros, and that ilk. So it all cascades down from the Olympians to the Committee of 300, down through these various organizations, through Tavistock, Rand Corporation, Heritage Corporation. It all comes down, and they create our reality for us, and they have been doing it for a long time. And now they're experimenting with these gang stalking and energy weapons so that they can control the whole population. And that's the program. You're kind of in a beta test. You're in the test. They're testing these energy weapons, the chipping, to make sure that they're going to be able to control the entire population in these nefarious ways. So you're the first line. The TIs now are the first line of this program.
So we have a little background noise. If someone's unmuted *6 on your phone, let me see if I can find the noise. Okay. Okay, I think the noise went away. Are you still there?
Yeah, the noise went away. I'm still here.
Good. That's good.
So we're in good shape.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we were just talking about the beta testing and kind of the ultimate objective of what this program, what it appears to be doing, and so we kind of left off there.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand that torture is a big part of the program. Torture is a big thing to the elite controllers that control the world. And their claim is that you can use torture to get information from people, that you can torture detainees, like in Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo Bay, and through that torture you can get useful information to be used on the battlefield. Well, that's just not true, and it hasn't been true for a long time. 400 years ago, there was a paper written by a Jesuit that dispelled the notion that torture was at all useful for this type of information. It doesn't work. People will give you what they want you to hear, and the information is hardly accurate. So the reason this is fresh in my mind is I'm doing some writing on this today. And in addition to this, and in addition to this 400-year-old treatise, let me find my. A 2014 study in the Journal of Applied Cognitive Psychology, entitled "The Who, What, and Why of Human Intelligence Gathering," surveyed 152 interrogators and found that rapport and relationship building techniques were employed most often and perceived as the most effective, regardless of content and intended outcome, particularly in comparison to confrontational techniques. Confrontational techniques would be your torturing. Another 214 study in the same journal, interviewing high-value detainees, sampled 64 practitioners and detainees and find that detainees are more likely to disclose meaningful information. And earlier in the interview, when rapport-building techniques were used. Finally, an exhaustive 2014 report by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence analyzed millions of internal CIA documents related to the torture of terrorism suspects, including that CIA's use of enhanced interrogation techniques was not an effective means for acquiring intelligence or gaining information. What it usually gets is faulty intelligence. And then there are mind reading technologies today called synergistic technology and brain reading technology, where if they can't read your brain, they're just about to get that technology. You know what I mean? It's so far advanced that if it's not being used today, which I'm sure it is, it would be just around the corner. And then there are various things that work like truth serums that gather rapport. So the notion that torture is used to get information is a scam. And anytime someone starts saying that they need to torture people for this reason or that, and one of them is to gather intelligence, it's just not true. But there are reasons that they do torture. The reasons that are beneficial to the elite, not to humanity, but to the elite. One of them is to get confessions to a false narrative. This was used in World War II to construct the good war, or what was characterized as the good war, by the Rockefellers' publication, The Definitive History of World War II. And what they used in that history were massive amounts of documents from German soldiers that had used torture to get this information. So they used torture to back a narrative. Also, it was used in the build-up to the Iraq War. There were documents. There were people that were tortured that gave the basis for the entry into that war. So they do use torture for that. They also use torture since they're this is a hard one to describe. The people who run the government, the elites, are very much related to Satanism. Now, I don't know whether that'll shock your audience or they'll be in line with that or they'll know. That's why the Pizzagate and Pizzagate thing is rearing its ugly head. Because these people gain a lot of power from these children, torturing children, and they also gain power from torturing adults in torture centers like Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo Bay. It's a what can I say? It's a power enhancing ritual that they do. So they use torture for that. And then what you people are involved in is what I'm going to call transformational torture. And it's torture to transform society. And it was first used, it's been used down through the years, but first used by the United States in the Phoenix program, where during Vietnam, various military people would terrorize towns and have people live in fear, torturing and killing many of them, so that they were very compliant to whatever the Americans wanted to do there. Phoenix program is, I think, the forerunner of the program that you guys are in. It's the one where they want to manipulate society by fear and torture, and so that morphed into, after the war. During that same time was the MK Ultra program, where they used torture to create mind control slaves. I don't know who authorized the government to want to create mind control slaves, but it's been a documented CIA program that was supposedly started in the 50s and ran to, I think, 1973, and it supposedly was disbanded, although you and I know it wasn't. And so they create mind control slaves through torture. and the way this works is they'll torture a young person, generally starting before the age of 6, and this torture includes pedophilia, and it causes the individual to fragment their personalities so that they create alters, and these alters are created by the individual in order to withstand whatever torture they're going under. So when they go back through that type of thing in their life, they'll switch to another personality that handles it better. And they can create tortures, they can create alters that are assassins, they can create alters that are sex kittens, they can create alters that are performance artists like Sasha Fierce. They can create, so they use torture in MK Ultra to create these altered personalities. Now, in your case, they're using torture to intimidate you, keep you quiet. Many of the people that are being tortured are bright, talented, articulate, curious, just exactly the type of people that they don't want in their hive mind society. So what they're doing is through these very electronic methods, and various gang stalking interventions, they're trying to figure out how they're going to control the whole population. And you guys, since you're some of you are mavericks, you're good test subjects. Although I've talked to people who are in the TI program that they're just, the only reason I can think of that they're in there is because they're in excellent physical condition. So you can be put into the program for any particular reason that they decide they want the database. So that's the transformational torture that they're doing on you guys. Torture is a big part of the program for the satanic elite. And this is a big part of that program. Subsequently, everybody will be subject to this type of torture through mind control, through smart meters, radio towers, Gwen towers, satellite, and various other mechanisms. I think everybody needs to know that they're in the program. They might be a TI right now, but that doesn't mean that they don't have to be controlled. So I know that was a long explanation, and I hope the phone didn't cut out halfway through, and I got all the information out. But
yeah, for the most part, there was a little interference on your line, but I think it came clear. 90% of it came crystal clear.
Okay, that's a really long way of explaining why I think this is the most important thing that should be covered by every alternative media, that should be covered by, well, mainstream media works for them, so we're certainly not going to hear it on mainstream. But it's a program that every citizen, especially citizens who are waking up, are involved in, whether they like it or not. And so it's urgent for us to get the word out, because the only way it's going to stop is if everybody knows what's going on and we can turn and address it. That's my notion. I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I mean, I think that's the first thing we have to do. We have to, there has to be almost like an uprising. People need to realize that this is going on first, and it has to go through these certain stages, it seems like. Because when someone hears it, it's like, I heard someone say that it's kind of like they need an incubation period to kind of for it to take root a little bit before it actually start to realize that this may actually be real. So I think that's the first thing we have to do. We have a wonderful woman named Tomo who created a great bill proposal for California. So bills help, laws help, but, it's one thing to have a law. It's another thing to uphold it, but I think the first, we all probably agree that exposing this to the public is the most powerful thing we can do. But what's your opinion on solutions? What do you think it's going to take to kind of stop this or get the ball going other than public outreach?
Well, it seems to me that battle lines are being drawn. And there are people that know they're perpetrators and they work for these organizations, and they've sold themselves in this program, and they're going to stay there. The rest of us have to come to the realization that we're on the other side, that we are the targets, and that we are the innocent. We're the, what can I say, we're the hope for mankind. Because without consciousness's ability to expand and grow, there's just there's no future. There's nothing to count on. If they're successful in being able to control every individual and put us all in their humanist agenda, there's no future for consciousness. There's no future for human consciousness. And I would imagine what would happen is we would stop participating. But right now, I think everyone needs to know that they're in the game. Nobody's sitting on the sideline. There's nobody that's not on one side or another. And once I think they realize that they're in the game, and the game is horrible, the game is, I think that everybody should watch at least one or two interviews with TIs to see what these people go through. It's horrible in itself, but what makes it doubly horrible is that they're gaslighted while they're in it. Now, gaslighting is a process. I'm sure your listeners know this. Gaslighting is a process where the people around you make you think that you're crazy for voicing your concerns. So they'll surround you with people that doubt you. And usually one of the steps in this program is to have you lose friends, lose your husbands sometimes. A lot of people lose their spouses during this program. I know a person who the CIA sent a lover in for his wife to break up what was a solid relationship. So it's, they said nothing. And so when they make you alone, and everybody that you tell this to thinks you're crazy, it makes you hopeless, and you don't. You stop expressing yourself, stop behaving normally, and then you're just alone in this horrible torture. So, yeah, I think it's something we really need to get out there. People need to know, and they need to know that they're in the program one way or another. They might not be just a TI exactly today, but the government is experimenting with ways to control them in the future. So, anyway, I think I'm starting to get redundant here.
No, I think you're spot on. No, I think that is what's going to need to happen. And being a person who is married and with children, and having some pretty close calls, you have to be very careful about it. You have to be very well educated before you open your mouth. And even then, sometimes it's almost better to work on the public more than it is your own family, because it can be very difficult for families to cope and understand. And it just depends on the situation. But it's a tricky topic to dance around. But I still talk about it. I don't even necessarily mention. It depends on the person that I'm also, in this program myself. But I just say I'm into human rights, and this kind of stuff is happening. And I bring up some of the experimentation that's gone on, in America, and I talk about these new types of weapons, and that there are possibly some rogue groups as well that are getting their hands on this stuff, and that it's turning into a serious, serious problem. And I talk about these advanced technologies and this mind-influencing technologies, and, and that it's very scary. We need individuality. We need to be able to express ourselves and be creative. We don't need a homogenous sheeple. We really don't. That you might as well not be living it. That's the way we're all going to be, a bunch of mindless zombies, so to speak. I don't like that word. It sounds, silly. But, people that just are afraid to speak out are just so programmed, by everything they read and see, and all this technology that, I think can be emanated through, the cell phone towers, through cell phones, through, basically anything. I've studied a lot about microwaves and all these piggyback signals and messages, and I guess that's been going on since the 50s, as long as we've had broadcasting. Apparently, according to some articles, actually many articles, state that this ability to send messages to the fragile mind that's vulnerable to anything electric, it's an issue, and it's just gotten better and better over the years. So it's such an urgent topic on so many levels. If we care about freedom and freedom of thought and speech, and just our basic human rights, everyone needs to get on board with this.
I think you're exactly right, and it's easy for us to get it out through a forum like this. I mean, that's
right.
Really made things easier because, first of all, we're attracting a lot of TIs, and they know what's going on, and there's like I said today, they're starting to put together sections of this and get this out beyond that community. And there are some people, that are just not going to be open to this no matter what. They're not going to believe that this, there are people that still think that 911 was done by a group of Muslims with box cutters. And so there are some people that are just not going to get it. So this forum, your podcast, some of the work I've done with Eric and the interviews that I've done, and some of the TIs that are just popping up online with their testimonies, it's going to be targeting a limited audience at first, and then it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But I really don't expect everybody to jump on this because there's so many obvious things that are going on in the world that some people are still not awake to. There's some people I think that are just born with the mindset of, that government is a good thing and that the military is always out to bring freedom around the world, and certainly the military and the CIA and the FBI wouldn't be involved in these kind of things, let alone an honorable company that a lot of people have stock in, like Lockheed Martin.
Right.
But others, but most, I don't know how many. There are going to be a lot of people awakening to it if we just keep doing what we can, as long as we can, as long as we have the internet, as long as we have a little bit of freedom of speech. We're going to keep pounding this until people wake up to this, because this is a threat to everyone. It's a threat to human consciousness.
It really is. It's a good way to put it, a threat to human consciousness. Well, considering your background, that makes perfect sense, but that's such a succinct way, perfect way of expressing what really it is. Well, when did you first start to kind of wake up? Because we talked about you're obviously very knowledgeable in a lot of different areas. A lot of topics that people aren't really aware of, aren't ready to accept. When did you start to wake up and realize that there was something serious going on that was like in the underbelly of the government or in the underbelly of the media?
Well, I guess it was around 2006 when YouTube came out, and we were getting clicks, and we were able to research things online. We decided to pick a top and just go deep as we could. And then we started running into... Yeah, go ahead.
Your phone's breaking up a little bit, but we'll just make out the best we can.
Okay. Well, it was about 2006, and after 2007, we tried to tell other people what was going on, and we got ridiculed. And we decided, well, you can't argue with chemtrails. You can just see them; they're up in the sky. So we started making presentations. We lived in Brattleboro, Vermont at that time, and we started making presentations. And lo and behold, we found out not everybody could see them. That, people would deny that they were there. So that was probably the first thing in our path that when we started waking up, and then we got involved with Karen Tostado and United We Strike a little bit, and then I decided to write the book Belief Magic to try to get people, because we knew a lot of people, but they were real resistant to opening their mind to this. So I wrote the book Belief Magic, and it was designed to get people to question their beliefs. Where did this belief come from, And
right.
Actually what the book does, it talks about, well, did you get these beliefs from your parents? And where did they get those beliefs? Did you get them from school? Where did they get them? Did you get them from the TV? Where did you get them? And when you go through the whole process, which is several chapters, you realize that there's really nothing you could call your own beliefs. They've all been superimposed. And I mentioned the Tavistock Institute earlier. The Tavistock Institute did a lot to shape our culture. They created the hippie movement to corrupt the civil rights and anti-war movement, and got us all focused on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it's not just those big programs, like they call that the Aquarian conspiracy. Tavistock does, but down through the years they've influenced us, and trying to break ourselves from their influence and which is the mainstream media influence, Hollywood's influence, really is important. It's a really important process right now. What I'm involved right now are targeted individuals, and they're lucky because they're targeted. They're open. They want to know what's going on with me, and they read books, and you're really getting deeply into this and that. But generally, they'll. Now this isn't true always, but sometimes they'll drill down into the rabbit hole in their area, and that area won't include things like maybe geoengineering or the false right-left paradigm in politics, or other things that I was privileged enough to get involved in since 2006. So I can really help them in showing them things in other rabbit holes, and since they're targeted individuals, they're more open than the general population. So it's really an honor for me to work with them and explain, how the alternative media is put together, and who in the alternative media is really alternative, who isn't, who can they trust, can't they trust? Because I've been down that rabbit hole. I know that area, and I can help the targets, get a broader base for their awareness than just about the gang stalking and touchless torture programs. So I feel lucky to be involved, and very passionate about people knowing what's going on with their They're innocent citizens all over the place.
Well, I know that we're all grateful that you're trying to help expose this. And how do you feel about taking some questions?
That sounds good. Ella.
Okay, well, I have one question I got from a text. It says, from an organization's psychology standpoint, can you discuss his opinion? Can you discuss your opinion of the psychology of these government organizations?
Yes, I can. Catherine Horton and I have done. I've done a presentation on this, and she and I have done an interview on this, where she interviewed me. It's on Pinecone Utopia channel. These organizations, they're all triangular shaped. The triangle is how the elites control the world. The triangle is more than just a symbol, or the pyramid is more than just a symbol to them. It is their organization structure, and everything works through the pyramid. And it works through the pyramid because power always comes down from the top. Everything's controlled from the top, and it can be so compartmentalized so that only a little bit of the organization might know what's really going on. Now, the people that are in the upper echelon of these organizations and governments, there's an abnormally high proportion of psychopaths. Catherine Horton calls these organizations deep capture, and I call them psychopath magnets. So you get a company like Lockheed Martin, and your board of directors, and probably your president, and certainly many of your vice presidents, are going to be psychopaths. And I say that because they do psychopathic things. They're involved in psychopathic maneuvers. For example, this gang stalking Lockheed Martin is involved in. Not everybody that works for Lockheed Martin knows what's going on. It's very compartmentalized. But I imagine the president and a vice president that it reports through certainly know what that program is involved in. And unless they were a psychopath, they wouldn't allow that program to exist. They wouldn't back it. They wouldn't, participate. DynCorp is another one. DynCorp has a division that does child trafficking, and most people in DynCorp aren't aware of that. That's true, but I'm sure there's a vice president. Psycho vice president that is in charge of several psychopathic directors, and it goes down through the organization. Now they could paralyze it at a lower level. If you didn't know what you were doing, you might just be securing paperwork for this or doing that. But I would imagine that most of them know what they're doing. So organizationally, the triangle organization becomes a psychopath method, especially if it's publicly traded. And if you're this is my personal opinion, if you're involved in owning stock, publicly traded corporation, you're feeding the beast. You're giving impetus, money, power to these organizations like Monsanto, Bayer, there's thousands of corporations. And the same is true with the military. I'm sure there are generals that aren't psychopaths, but I'm sure they're not as useful to the satanic elite as the psychopathic generals would be. Like the ones that did horrible things in Vietnam, like MacArthur. You can get a lot more done through a psychopath than you can through someone who's going to have morality or a conscience after it happens. So now I was in corporations and organizations for 30 plus years, and there's wonderful people working there, and most of my experience is with those wonderful people. The sickness in the organizations is generally found in the upper echelon and down through various functions that are anti-human, like the DynCorp child trafficking thing. So I think that my experience there is really important for the TIs, because I know what these organizations are like on the inside. I know what they look like, and I know how they can be totally corrupted and run from the top. Also, there's a configuration that Catherine Horton and I talked about when we first got to know one another, which is kind of a team-based, non-triangular organization. And I think it's from those talks that she modeled her panel. People all on the same level, working toward one goal, is much more powerful than anything the triangular organizations can put forth. So I think that she created the panel based on our talk about independent, autonomous teams taking on big responsibilities and doing big things in the face of these triangular monsters that are trying to run and ruin the world. Did that answer the question? I hope it did.
I think that answered the question very well. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
Let's see. I'm going to go to, so star 8 on your phone if you have a question. We have about, would 30 minutes be okay for questions and answers? I don't want to keep you too long.
Sure, that's good.
Okay, so I'm going to start with New York here.
Oh, hi. I just joined the call. Hi. Yes, I have something going on which is just rather odd. It's been stepped up lately. I've been getting hits to my chest, and I had tinnitus for several years, and it started with just getting these shots of pain when I was cooking. And I don't know. I didn't do anything, I think, to bring it on, but I guess I would like to know what I can do to protect myself, not just shielding, but what type of action can I take to find out who's responsible for this, in your opinion? And I'll listen.
Well,
thank you.
Good. Thanks for the question.
Sure.
First of all, don't think that you've done something to get into the program. Don't think that you have to do something to get selected to be in the gang stalking targeted individual program.
Well, what amazes me, I consider myself a crime victim. To think that this is a program shows the degree to which the corporate and the military are aligned in this country. To some extent, Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, a program? Really?
Well, it's a very sophisticated program, a very widespread program. It's all over the world. We have targets from all over the world, and it's done by all the militaries. It's certainly done by all the deep state spy agencies. Now we're found out that it's done by corporations like Lockheed Martin, and it's very pervasive. They run the world, and this is how they're going to run it starting now. Now, what you can do to shield yourself, you really need to watch the Crime Stoppers forum, and what you can do, this is becoming an automatic resource. They run the world on secrecy. we're going to free the world on openness. That's why open source investigations really can uncover a lot more, and they can uncover a lot about their secret organizations. But if you go to all the Crime Stopper forums, comments, they're basically TIs commenting on the forum. And they have documents you can read. They have actions you can take against different types of weapons. It's a storehouse of information for all TIs. Just the comments underneath all the Crime Stopper forums. So I would refer you to that. Also, there are a lot of books. Now, I don't have them in front of me. I should have done that in preparation for this. There's a lot of different books. Down through the years, I've interviewed Eric Karlstrom. And Eric Karlstrom is a TI himself. And he has a lot of books that he gives every time he makes a presentation. And they're all basically referenced below the YouTube, or you go to pineconeutopia.com and you could find that particular episode's reference list. So that's all I can tell you. I can't. Yeah, go ahead.
And then maybe what we'll do too is maybe include some of Eric's recommendations below your YouTube. So when we create this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay,
Hello?
So now I'm going to...
Can I just jump in? Hi, Ella. It's Dr. Andrews. Just a brief question for Dr. Marko. He went through very nicely and discussed from the organizational psychology standpoint, how the triangle works in these types of organizations, and he further spread that to discussing how this program is worldwide. Now, being that Dr. Marko works with many whistleblowers, accredited people, researchers, and so forth, this program, like you said, is worldwide. There are a lot of participants. What's the psychology of a whistleblower from within the system? Why haven't we seen someone come out and dump documents on, say, a TI and what's going on? But what does it take for a person to come out against what they experience? Say they have some semblance of a conscience left over. I think you probably, Dr. Marko, would be very well versed in speaking on the psychology of whistleblower and coming out and possibly having that Edward Snowden for TIs in the future.
Boy, it'd be great to have one of those, wouldn't it? Thanks for the question. I think that they're absolutely, totally frightened. I think they're paid well and threatened, so that they're, it's going to be a big jump to have them come out and whistleblow. And then when you do whistleblow, sometimes you won't be believed. I mean, we have Karen Melton Stewart, who I think is as big a whistleblower as Edward Snowden. She can't get an interview. Nobody believes her. And honestly, I talk to her every week, and there's nobody that I think is more credible than her. But it's because the mainstream media and up to now the alternative media have shying away from TI whistleblowers and that type of information. It's a dark, deep, dark program, because this is how they're intending to control the population going forward. And if too many people wake up to it and people start looking around and realizing they're in the program, they might run into trouble. So I think it's very tightly controlled. It's very, what I think, I wonder why not more perpetrators don't come forward. They must be threatened also. I mean, the people that live next door to Karen Stewart and Romola D shoot them with energy weapons all the time. they drive by and shoot them with energy weapons. When are these people going to realize that they're working against humanity? When are they going to realize that there's no future for humanity in what they're doing? Also, a lot of these people, actually, a lot of the perps are criminals that they've been released to work these various programs. So, no, it's really exactly what we need. We need an Edward Snowden of the TI perpetrators, and we need to take them seriously, and we need to protect them. How that's going to happen, I'm not sure, but thanks for the question.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's see. Thank you for the question, Sean, and thank you for the answer. Go down here. Let me get to Northwest California. Northwest California, you're on the air. You have a question for Dr. Marko?
Yeah, hi, Ella. It's Roseanne. Hello, Dr. Marko.
Hi.
I love what you're saying. I love your conclusions and the insight that you're giving us. Just today, I was watching an interview between you and Eric Carlstrom about Tavistock, and it was really good. Also, I was watching the Corbett report about the Phoenix program, and that was really interesting. There's a lot of similarities, subjugating the population, psychological operations, and what else? Hidden armies. So it's very relevant. Anyways, I was actually on one of the crime fighters on Catherine Horton's website in the very beginning of her quest to publicize this, and the perps had other ideas. They kept taking me off. So I'm very happy to see this moving forward. And I was wondering if you yourself are being targeted because you're hosting this?
No, I'm not.
Yay!
Everybody's lives have bumps in them. I don't think mine is particularly rough. I'm just. There's a lot of people who are doing very relevant work that aren't targeted, and there are other people that are targeted for absolutely nothing, it seems. And targeted in the most.
Some of it.
Go ahead.
I'm convinced that some of it's just economic convenience, like vulnerability.
Oh yeah.
Somebody's living alone without close family ties, and they haven't got a lot of money. And it's just a good setup for what they're trying to do. I love the fact that the word's getting out because, TIs don't see enough progress. I mean, they want this to stop now.
Sure.
And I can totally relate to that. And but on the other hand, what's happening is even if people don't quite absorb it all and believe it all, they remember it. And what this means is if it happens to them, they're going to have an idea of what's going on. And that's actually hindering the program from advancing. If the final goal is to subjugate humanity, then it's going to be kind of difficult if people understand that, I heard this program and they were talking about having weird physical ailments and, sort of mind forgetfulness and whatever, sleep disturbances and all these things. And so if people are aware of the symptoms and the projected outcome, then I don't think they're going to have a very easy job of pulling it off.
Let's hope
because
so.
It's no longer a secret. Another thing I hope they're learning is what they're doing is creating a lot of activists. You know, one thing I've noticed about a lot of the targeted individuals is that this has pushed them into activism. Now, maybe they wanted to create that. You know, I just don't know about that. Maybe they want us to fight our government, you know, to add to the turmoil that they want the world to be in right now. I haven't quite figured all that out. But they are creating a lot of activists. So if you're trying to change a person's behavior and get them to do your bidding, they're failing in a lot of cases. And
right.
I'm really kind of hopeful about that. I know they have unlimited money and resources, and it's in their financial best interest to keep this program going. But at the same time, you know, if it's not working and it becomes more and more threatening for them to do so, I think we have more of a chance of the plug being pulled. Or at least, you know, them backing off somewhat.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that they could terminate these individuals in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not.
No.
They're not. They're allowing this activism to start. They're allowing us to find out more and more about it. You know, we're in the thing called the apocalypse, which means the unveiling or the externalization of the hierarchy, where they want you to know who your boss is. They want you to know who runs you. And so, you know, in that way, they might be really loving what we're doing, you know,
right.
Telling them and exposing the energy weapons and everything that they have. It's pure hubris on their part, I'm sure. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm very hopeful that humanity, or at least some section of humanity, has enough gumption and enough humanity to stand up against this and do something about it. You know, this is the new war. This is you know, these old wars. When they talk about Syria and talk about the threat that Korea is about the size of Mississippi. I mean, I think it's got like 7 or 8 nuclear weapons, but no capability of delivering. I mean, the way they characterize war now is just like World War II or World War I. It's not like that at all. The war of today is weather weapons, directed energy weapons, chipping, microwaves. That's actually what warfare is today. And unless we wake up and realize that they're practicing asymmetrical war on us, you know, and the mainstream media and everybody keeps them in the illusion that this puppet show is actual reality, and they should be concerned about Russia nuking us. Well, Russia and the U.S. are so far beyond that type of warfare. If they do it, it would be just for show.
I agree.
Not that it wouldn't wake up people as they do.
I look at all the people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Not that it wouldn't wipe out a lot of people, and they love that, but...
Right. Depopulation, after all. But, no, look at all these people, buying guns and preparing themselves, for threats to their freedom. And I just shake my head. I'm like, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah,
that's
it's interesting.
It's not going to work. And actually, TIs are on the cutting edge of knowledge because of their lab rat status. If you want to know what's going on in the world today and what's being worked on and what works and what doesn't work and all the things they can do, you ask a TI because they are the lab rats. And hopefully you ask about 10 of them, and very few people are aware in this world about exactly what you were just saying. The wars of the future are not going to be about traditional weaponry. It's going to be about this stuff that we're dealing with. And, I've heard it defended, and I'm sure there is a defense for it in that, okay, it doesn't ruin buildings. You don't have to kill a person, to stop them. I have heard the benefits of it. It's just so sadistic the way they're going about it. And I, too, question the Satanism link because it's unnecessarily cruel what's going on. There are 1 million homeless people across this country that would volunteer for this work for money.
Yeah, they created such an economic problem that there are plenty of people that can't get jobs otherwise. So they'll, Eric was telling me that they'll pay someone $100 just to phone in his location.
Right.
So
and
so
then they put a gag order on them, and if you break a gag order, it's an immediate. They throw you in jail immediately. And I'm sure everybody involved in this program has signed that piece of paper. And that's why no one's coming out about it. Because they don't want it done to them and they don't want to end up in jail. I think it is coming out, and I wonder sometimes because it is being allowed to come out, if, this is part of just discrediting Western governments sometimes and saying, look what they did to their own people. They were torturing women and children and vets and old people and, and so, sometimes they say, well, gee, why are we allowed to do this? I mean, they could wipe off your YouTube channel in a second.
Yeah.
And
maybe
so, what's the game here? Why is this being allowed to come out? And, you really have to get a population very, very, very upset with its government before they will accept a new one. And I wonder if that's part of the strategy. Anyways, I'm talking too much. Just last word, I want to thank you for helping us to expose this from the bottom of my heart.
Okay, thanks for calling in.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Roseanne might be a good person to have sometime. She's also one of the activists, too. She was talking about, they want us to respond and kind of create this riot, but I don't know. A lot of people I know don't react and don't do activism for various obvious reasons. So, I don't know. It takes a lot of, I guess just determination, to, continue to take up this fight. But it's easy when you have good motivation, when you have family and kids and you worry about future generations and, as long as you're physically able to do something like that. But I know it's hard for people to be able to do this, It's a lot easier for a non-target to be doing this than targets because, there's reactions to our activism. So that can make it pretty difficult. That's
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay. Now I'm going to go to West Washington State.
Okay.
Hi.
Oh, hey, how are you? How's it going?
I'm good, Al. How are you?
Okay, just got home from work. I just heard this gentleman on. I've never heard him before. He sounds pretty in tune and very educated. And you're a physicist, is that correct, sir?
No, I'm a organizational psychologist.
Oh, wow. Well, you know what's going on in Washington State, don't you?
No, tell me.
They're Emily Chiang. She runs the ACLU out here, and she indicted the two psychologists that were in the military, and I don't know where their background is as far as where they did their service as far as their background and all that. I'm sure you could easily find out.
I did read that.
Oh, you do? You know about her? You know about Emily Chiang? Okay. So that's trial action, and it's June. And the judge threw out all their denials to throw it out. So it'll be very interesting to see what those two schmucks. And they got 80 million. 80 million. And that's the that's the policy they're using. So that's cool. I'm glad that you know about that. I just wanted to make a couple comments. I heard that a lot of you have an excellent first-class board. I'd really like to go check that out. That's at Pinecone Utopia at YouTube, right?
Right.
I'm not that good on the internet, but I'll figure out how to get access to those. And I'm usually working in the day because I'm stuck in construction. So I'll just try to make some time whenever I get a day off to get on there. And I'm really sorry to hear that Karen is not getting any interviews and whatever. The last few years, I've noticed that the populace is. I was in denial in the very beginning too, and I think we're going through a time of change. Whereas, it's very obvious to me it's a control model. That the implementation, you just see the shootings and all this and that. The only thing that I could come up with, which I wanted to hear what your opinion of it is. A lot of people or a lot of women, they say, oh, if you mention anything having to do with violence, we don't want anything to do with it. But staying away from this topic, and in other words, if you were hooked up politically, or you were, they respected you at the functions, and you're a business person in a city, or you're, or a successful business guy. If you were to bring up a general concern like, hey, this is the question I have for you. If you were to bring up a concern to them and say, hey, listen, I've noticed there's a general increase in shootings, and, like in my case, in reality, it became very close to a family member in my family. And it's a very good point that I could always bring that up and say, this guy was supposedly, he was in my particular case, he was an attorney. What would make an attorney go into a college, brandish a weapon, murder innocent people, and when the police arrive, say, kill me, kill me, kill me? And when I reviewed that type of action, I'm seeing it's happening, more often and more often and more often in our society. And a few associations and a few people brought it to my attention that there's a new weaponry on the block that's classified or called directed energy weaponry. I think a forensic test is in order as far as in our society on any suspicious homicide, because our children can't go to the mall, college, movies, shopping centers without having to worry about some guy that gets hooked up with directed energy weapon. Maybe it's a foreign country. Maybe it's somebody playing a practical joke. Maybe they're building this stuff on their own. And I want this brought out and enforced. What is your opinion on doing a presentational format in that area to actually get something done? Because if you hit these people head on, I brought this up almost 3 years ago. And I think it will work. Or something like that that's perfectly orchestrated. I mean, you could even get college kids. You could get a bill passed per state, I think, in my opinion, because this is a matter of safety. It's a health hazard. It's, your kids. God, you work your butt off all your life. You send your kids to college, and you're worried about somebody playing a practical joke on somebody. and using directed energy weapon, and he flips out and kills your kid. Or some guy who's really hooked up with this stuff, or who knows what's going on. Whatever it is, it's fishy, and I think a forensic test is in order for any suspicious homicides or multiple homicides or anything that we've seen on this, so that this issue can be addressed. Do you think that that's legibly possible?
Well, if you decide to do something, I'm behind it. I mean, whatever you think you can do to be active in this, I think it's right.
I don't see any. I mean, me personally, no. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that. Go ahead, sir.
Now they have synthetic telepathy, so they can now put either your own voice into your head or the voice of God in your head, and command you to do whatever they want to do. Now, this is just an ordinary citizen. This isn't a mind control MK Ultra person that has many alters that can be commanded by trigger words to do the bidding of the deep state. If you take the Aurora shooter,
Are you saying? I know I was right around the corner from that. I mean, I was very close to that and living in Colorado when that happened. Are you saying there's an alternative? There is something different than V2K and Audio Spotlight?
Well, the V2K.
I just want to follow you. No, my point
is, the V2K could actually motivate a murderer. They can do. I'm not sure. Now, this is my own theory, but I have a lot of reason to believe this. When you watch television, you're in another state of consciousness, and they flicker the different shots at such a rate to make you constantly secrete adrenaline, then whatever the compound is that takes the adrenaline away. So when you're in front of the TV, you're in an altered state of consciousness. And you have to know that television was never, the vision behind television wasn't entertainment. Actually, the first cast of YouTube was built to contact dead people. But it's been used as a mind control device down through the years. Now, with you in an altered state, sitting in front of your television, through the programming, and they don't make any. They're not shy about calling it programming. It is programming. They could program an entire population to be triggered, something that came over the TV or just occurred naturally in the environment. So we're really all mind control slaves in one way or another. So that getting someone to commit murder, become a jihadist, is very easy with the tools they have now. Supposedly during the Iraq War, I think that you've heard this legend, I'm sure, that the Royal Guard around Saddam Hussein's palace was subdued by V2K and also possibly hologram images in the sky. Because what happened is they just laid down their weapons. So we're talking about a society that's even now very much under control. And so I don't know where you begin to investigate a murder that was done by a mind control slave unless you would go back and try to look at their past. They did it with the Aurora shooting. That man was involved in he was a mind control major or something like that. So he was in the program, and he just, I don't know, made the wrong professor angry. But he got on the controlled end of the controlling. So I don't know how you would investigate that. I would love for you to do something about it, but I don't know how you could investigate and find out whether the person was mind-controlled unless they survived it and then said something later. Usually if they allow the to survive it, it's because he or she is loaded with some information that they can trigger them giving later. Usually what they'll do is either kill the patsy or make it so he can't be publicly displayed. I mean, they even did that. They did that in the RFK murder. I mean, Sirhan Sirhan. There's a lot of evidence that he didn't even commit. He didn't even have the same kind of gun that was that the bullets came from. But he's been out of sight. He didn't know what happened. He was a patsy. He was a mind control victim way back there in the 60s. So I can't even imagine what they can do today. So I don't know whether that answered your question or just confused, muddied the water more. But
well, actually, I put him on mute because he had a little background noise of me seeing me. Find him on here. That might be him. Well, I can't tell once I mute it, but I'm sure it did. I'm sure I'll have him. Raise your hand again, Al, if you want to finish up on your question. So, okay, so now this might be him. Let me check. Hi, West Washington. Is this Al?
It's not Al. No. It's me. But I do have a comment.
Ed, yeah.
I wanted to say thank you very much for your show. It's really excellent. You have all the best people, and I look forward to it. Thank you very much for your service to the whole world, really, by getting these ladies together. Well, and also, I was reading that I found a really interesting article in that what they actually are looking at is they are calling the people who are doing this the targeted audience. They don't really talk that much in psychological operations about the targeted individuals are actually referred to as empowered individuals. And so they are trying to keep us from, manifesting, of course, and getting this stopped. And then who they actually are targeting is the people who are performing it. Those are actually the targets, the targeted audience.
Well, I thank you for that comment. I'll probably think of nothing else.
You know what I'll do is I'll send the article to Ella, and she can send it to you.
That's fascinating. I'll probably not think of anything else tonight, but that comment that the targets
I know
might
it
be
was a real eye-opener for me, too. So I'll just let her find Al, but I wanted to say that to you and to thank you very much for what you're doing for everybody.
Well, you're very welcome. We're having fun doing it, and
I love it. Yeah.
We like being in service.
And I love the humor.
It's funny, isn't it? I was trying to say that at the beginning. Those women, they're hit by energy weapons during the broadcast. They can rise above and even find humor.
And I noticed that poor Dr. Horton has like some kind of lesions or something on her skin, and just breaks my heart.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. I don't see Al, but I see California, and then I know it's getting pretty late where you're at. So, how many more questions? One or two? What sounds good to you?
One more. How about one more?
One more it is. Okay, California. Hi, California.
Hello.
Hi, do you have a question for Dr. Marko?
Yeah, I obviously missed whatever he had to share. What time did you start today? And I missed it. I must have tuned in. But that wasn't my question, but go ahead.
What's your question? He started a little bit early because he's in a different time zone, and I wanted to accommodate. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, so then I was curious what his name is, and it sounded like a lot of good stuff. But, yeah. So what's his name?
Dr. Paul Marko. And we can close on it. He can give you, again, we'll repeat his YouTube channel, his forum that he has, and any websites or anything like that. Do you want to close on that?
Sure, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have a YouTube channel called Pinecone Utopia channel, and if you go and subscribe, YouTube will let you know when we're doing our live podcasts. They occur 11 o'clock a.m. on Thursday mornings. I don't know what that would be Pacific time, but we run for about 2 hours, and we break blockbuster news every week. Those my panel, which isn't my panel, it's really Catherine Horton's panel, are totally amazing and full of information. I also have a blog. It's pineconeutopia.wordpress.com, and we do a lot of, we'll post all our videos on there and a lot of other stuff, TI related, and generally awakening type articles. I just posted one, and it was on the transgender movement and information about that. So it's not all about TI, but every TI information we get goes on there. So that's me. I'm Paul Marko.
Okay. Well, thank you again. I've really, really enjoyed having you. I'm glad Eric told me about you and that you've been helping out, with our cause. And I know, again, I'll say that we appreciate you very much. And I'll be there Thursday morning, so I look forward to it. So you said it's 11 o'clock East Coast time?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, we'll look for you on the chat, Ella.
That sounds good. Well, thank you again. Say hi to your very nice wife, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful. Bye.
Thank you. Good night. So, guys, I'm just going to stop the recording, and then we can have our open discussion. Welcome to the Tuesday Nights Triumph Over Targeting podcast. I'm your moderator, Ella. And tonight we have another special guest. His name is Dr. Marko. I'll be introducing you to him here in just a minute. If you are new to the call, please stay on, and we will get you some additional support, some TalkShoe podcast numbers, and some helpful links and websites. This is a solutions and educational-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions, comments, questions, or especially if you are in need of additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2016@gmail.com. So if you're new to the call and you're not quite sure how the features work, we're going to do an interview, and after the interview is over, we'll get to the questions and answers part of it. So if you're interested in asking a question, you will star 8 on your phone, and that will indicate to me that you'd like to speak. And if for any reason you want to mute yourself back up, if you have background noise or whatever the case may be, just hit star 6 on your phone, and that will mute you, and then star 6 to unmute yourself again. So the most important thing is just to remember to star 8. And then when I unmute you, you'll hear a prompt, like you are being unmuted. And then you'll know that you're unmuted. So just wait till you hear the prompt, because some people get a little confused by that. So let me get to the bio here. A little bit about Dr. Marko. He spent 30-plus years as an organizational development psychologist in large corporations and governments internationally. which means that as a psychologist, he worked with organizations and people within those organizations to help achieve objectives and modify culture. He has a PhD in psychology with a major in consciousness studies and has done research in that field. In 2011, he co-authored and edited an academic book on that subject entitled Post-Conventional Personality. Subsequently, Paul wrote a short book for public consumption entitled Belief Magic, designed as a tool to awaken people to the trap in which those that manipulate their beliefs have placed them. Academically, Paul has taught at various times on all levels of education, from kindergarten to the postgraduate level. Currently, Paul and his wife Mindy do several podcasts per month called The World Beyond Belief, which presents information and interviews relevant to the awakening of humankind. They also make videos that explain what is really happening in the world behind the MSM facade. Paul and Mindy host and produce a weekly panel discussion entitled the Techno-Crime Fighters Forum to raise awareness of the plight of those innocent individuals being targeted by the deep state, which orchestrates gang-stalking events and directed energy weapons to transform mankind. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. So again, welcome to the call. I really appreciate that you came.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Anything that'll get the word out, anything that'll make this thing more public. And I actually had some good news today. We've been doing these Techno-Crime Fighter podcasts for, we've done the 10th one last week. So it's the 11th week we're doing these things, and they're amazing. I don't know whether you've seen them. I know Midge has. She's been on one. These targeted individuals do heavy-duty research all week, and they present research at the Techno-Crime Fighters Forum every week. So we get loads of new information, you get real disclosures, and you really find out what's going on in the world behind the mainstream media puppet show that really has little to do with reality. Now, I was thinking that I was excited because somebody sent me today, somebody probably in Europe, because part of it's in German and Swedish, a compilation of one of our Techno-Crime Forum, and it's entitled FBI to Dr. Millicent Black, quote, "We know who chips are on, ... So someone is doing exactly what I wanted them to do right from the beginning of this, initiating this regular podcast, and that's pull things out of this podcast that are sometimes they're bombshell, sometimes they're really breaking news. We have one person on the panel. She's an NSA whistleblower, and she comes up with stuff just about every week. So I was encouraged that it's getting more legs than just, our little podcast, that it's actually getting around the world and people are picking up the information and publishing it, because that, I think, is the first step in undoing this whole mess.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. The more information we can get out there, incredibly, because it's hard. This is a program that is almost seems scientific and science fiction, so it can be very difficult to convince people, and people get distressed, and so when we communicate the stories, sometimes people will just mark it off. If you want to call back in, maybe that'll make it a little better.
Okay, I'll hang up and go through the same procedure I did to get in the beginning.
Okay, sounds
good.
Okay.
Ella, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Maybe you want to restart the recording so that it makes a nice, clean recording. I think he's going to start over his intro.
You think so?
Well, I'm always thinking about just having a professional sounding
well, what
upload.
I'll do is maybe just have him. I could have him edit it. I'll have him edit it just as soon as he calls in. Then what I'll do is my intro again, but I'll keep it really nice and short.
Okay.
Plus, my dog was barking and everything else was going on. Okay.
Yeah, I can cut it up for you.
Is that better?
Yeah, let's see.
Better?
Let me see if it's up better. Let's see. What's the name of your website and your YouTube channel again?
The YouTube channel is Pinecone Utopia YouTube channel, and the blog is pineconeutopia.wordpress.com.
Okay, well, you sound great. So you sound great.
Okay.
But I'm going to kind of start it over. We don't have to go into all of it again, although someone has suggested maybe we can kind of just, fine-tune it a little bit. I guess I'll start over. I'm sorry to have to ask you to do that. Would that be okay?
That's fine.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so I'm just going to give it 10 minutes pause, and we'll start over.
Okay.
Welcome to the Tuesday Nights Trump Over Target podcast. I'm your moderator, Ella, and tonight we have yet another special guest, Dr. Paul Marko. If you are new to the call, please stay on, and we will get you some support, additional TalkShoe podcast numbers, and hopefully some helpful links and websites. This is a solutions and educational-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions, comments, or questions, or if you're in need of additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2006@gmail.com. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Marko. He spent 30-plus years as an organizational development psychologist in large corporations and governments internationally, which means that as a psychologist, he worked with organizations and people within those organizations to help achieve objectives and modify culture. He has a PhD in psychology with a major in consciousness studies and has done research in that field. In 2011, he co-authored and edited an academic book on that subject entitled The Post-Conventional Personality. Subsequently, Paul wrote a short book for public consumption entitled Belief Magic, designed as a tool to awaken people to the trap in which those that manipulate their beliefs have placed on them. Academically, Paul has taught at various times on all levels of education from kindergarten to the postgraduate level. Currently, Paul and his wife Mindy do several podcasts per month called The World Beyond Belief, which presents information and interviews relevant to the awakening of humankind. They also make videos that explain what is really happening in the world behind the MSM facade. Paul and Mindy host and produce a weekly panel discussion entitled the Techno-Crime Fighters Forum to raise awareness of the plight of those innocent individuals being targeted by the deep state, which orchestrates gang-stalking events and directs energy weapons to transform mankind. So thank you, Paul. This is kind of our take two. So we really appreciate you coming to the call. And from what I understand, I know that you have interviewed quite a few of our TIs in the community. Maybe we should start by giving your contact information, your YouTube channel, and talk about the panel that you have.
All right. My YouTube channel is Pinecone Utopia YouTube channel. And we have a lot of things on there. I think last time I saw we had 233 different videos. Most recently, we're working with targeted individuals, in addition to other things. Our blog is pineconeutopia.wordpress.com, and there's a contact information there. Also, I always read all the comments that come in, so you can communicate with me by posting a comment on any of the Techno Crime Fighter Force or other broadcasts that we do. So that's how you can get in touch with us.
And maybe I should ask you, maybe we can go back to the beginning a little bit. How did you first learn about targeting and targeted individuals?
That's a good question. I was doing normal podcasts, and I was very interested in the subject of pedophilia and how people were tortured.
Or just, we'll think it's some kind of psychological disorder. So it is a little difficult to try to convince people. And I understand that you've had a lot of our quote-unquote TI celebrities on your show. Like I believe you've had Karen Stewart, and I think that's who you were referring to. You've had Catherine Horton and Melissa Black and all these great people. So we're very grateful in the community that you bring people like that on and are trying to help expose this.
Well, actually, Catherine Horton created the panel. It includes Dr. Milton Black, Karen Milton Stewart, and Romola D. And she's actually a very well-known writer. So the idea was, for me originally, was that if you get 4 or 5 targeted individuals who really just cannot be gaslighted. I mean, they're so incredibly credible, knowledgeable, intelligent to sit there and verify what's happening to one another. How could anyone doubt that it's happening? And I think it's really catching on. We get more and more comments. We get more people in the chat every week. By the way, it's on at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday morning, and it comes through our YouTube channel, which is Pinecone Utopia YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to the channel, of course, you'll be alerted before it comes on. And you can come on, be in the chat room. We have I think we have most TIs in the chat room. And you can comment directly to the Techno Crime Fighter team. They're wonderful to work with. We have a lot of fun. Oddly enough, we have a lot of fun on these broadcasts because we find incredible things out, and sometimes it's so ridiculous. We just have to laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the first thing we're doing is to try to get about it. It's so important. Everybody knows what's going on because
do you know your phone's
Go ahead.
Oh, do you know your phone's breaking up?
No.
Yeah.
Hey, is it so bad? Should I recall in, or what do you think?
Yeah, try calling back in. It might help. Maybe it won't. We have a lot of course, disruptions on these calls, trying to make it difficult to get valuable information out, as you know. So